everybody. It's Mira Aubuchon from FCRM Fertility, part of the First Fertility Network. It's so great to be with you during National Infertility Awareness Week. Because I try to tie everything into food, today's topic, it relates to male factor infertility. And one type of male factor infertility occurs when some of the sperm in the semen go backwards instead of forwards. And backwards in the man means that all of those swimmers go into the bladder where the urine is. And it's incredible, but for fertility treatment, sometimes we can actually use the sperm in the bladder to try to help the person become pregnant with fertility treatments like intrauterine insemination or IVF. But first, because the bladder is in a very acidic environment, that can be detrimental for the sperm's health. And so one way to make that environment less acidic is to raise the pH. And one of the ways to do that is with a very familiar over-the-counter product called Alka-Seltzer. You know, those fizzy tablets that people take to settle their stomachs. What that contains is sodium bicarbonate. And the bicarbonate part of that can make the urine less acidic. And so when it comes time to give a sample for the treatment, then the sperm from the urine may be healthier. So I thought about that when I was looking at a website called Serious Eats, and they had talked about using Alka-Seltzer to make a cheese sauce. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I did a little bit of a rabbit hole dive, and one of the resources that I put in the chat is from Milk Street. And Milk Street educated me that the components that can cause the cheese sauce to become more melty are sodium citrate. And sodium citrate is formed from the bicarbonate, which is what's in Alka-Seltzer, with citric acid, or like in lemon juice, and you combine the two of those and you get a compound called sodium citrate. And the molecular composition of sodium citrate is designated with the letters Na, which is sodium, and then C and H and O, and there's different compositions of those letters, but all of those together make NaCHO, or nacho, which I thought was pretty cool. So for today's recipe, we're gonna make a cheese sauce in honor of that idea. So what I have here is some just store-bought shredded cheese. You can use pretty much whatever cheese you want. Cheddar, Jack. This is just a mixture. And then I could have used Alka-Seltzer, but I prefer to use things that are food grade because they're a little bit more consistent. And sodium citrate is really easy to find online. And so this is just a bag of sodium citrate, and that's a food grade. And so what I did was I dissolved some water in the sodium citrate. See, it just looks just like water. And I'll just pour it in this bowl. And then I'm just going to dump in this whole bag, just a little bit at a time. I may need to heat this up as it's going. I got that water pretty hot. You could use whatever liquid. The Milk Street recipe used beer, but given that people are trying to get pregnant, I didn't think that was such a good idea. But there are non-alcoholic beers. But I think this will be plenty flavorful with just the water. But you could certainly jazz this up in whatever way you want. You can add in mustard and honey and hot sauce. This is turning kind of orange, which is also one of the colors for National Infertility Awareness Week. try to get every last bit out of that bag, which probably means I'll be wearing this cheese for the rest of the day, but I just hate to waste stuff. Okay. Oh yeah. So stir, 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 and you can see that we're actually starting to look sort of saucy looking. The cheese is still in some strands, so I'm just gonna heat this up a little bit more. And when I get done, we should have a beautiful cheese sauce. And here we have it. After just a couple minutes on the microwave, we have a beautiful cheese dip. And you can flavor this, like I said, any way you want. This original recipe was for a beer cheese dip, but it's Infertility Awareness Week, so hopefully nobody's drinking beer right now. But certainly there's non-alcoholic beer, or I just use water and I'm sure it'll just be delicious. So this is really just water, cheese, and this magical nacho ingredient, sodium citrate, all from the humble Alka-Seltzer. So this hopefully will help some people understand male factor infertility, especially the topic of retrograde ejaculation, and it's treatable, and we can help people have families even despite that. So hopefully you're having some educational and spirit nurturing and self-healing time this Infertility Awareness Week, and till then I wish you very well. And chef's treat. Oh, and before I actually say that, this would be a great thing for Infertility Awareness Week to dip one's French fries into. French fries, do you know why that is a thing? That actually probably, unfortunately, doesn't help all that much, but the thought is that the salt in the fries may help with a condition called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and maybe help that embryo snuggle up in there a little bit better. I would have fries, but instead, French fries dipped in cheese dip, and hopefully that'll be a very comfortable, soul-filled way to conclude your day of fertility treatment. So, chef's treat.